On the morning of April 12, 1981, 14-year-old Sheila Sharp walked home from a sleepover at the neighbor's cabin. The two buildings stood 15 feet apart. She'd kissed her mother goodnight, walked those 15 feet, and spent the night watching TV with her friends. When she opened the front door the next morning, her mother was dead on the living room floor. Her brother was dead beside her. His best friend was dead beside him. They'd been beaten with hammers, stabbed repeatedly, and bound with electrical cord and medical tape. The walls were sprayed with blood, but that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was who wasn't there. Her 12-year-old sister Tina was gone, and 3 other children, her 2 younger brothers, and their friend, had been sleeping in the next room the entire night. None of them heard a thing. Or so they said. This is Cabin 28, and this is what happened inside it. Glenna Sue Sharp was 36 years old. She had 5 children and no husband. She'd left him behind in Connecticut in 1979 and driven across the country to start over in Northern California, where her brother lived. That's the kind of thing people do when they're running towards something, or away from something. She settled in a place called Keddie. If you've never heard of it, there's a reason. Keddie is a railroad town. It's barely a town tucked into the Sierra Nevada mountains, about 6 miles west of Quincy, California. Population, a few dozen. In 1981, the Keddie Resort was a collection of cabins that had once been a vacation destination, but had since become low-income housing, rustic, isolated, the kind of place where everyone knows everyone because there's nobody else to know. Sue moved her family into Cabin 28. It was bigger than the trailer they'd been living in, and it had become available when the county sheriff himself moved out. She lived there with John, 15, Sheila, 14, Tina, 12, Rick, 10, and Greg, 5. It was tight. It was noisy. It was home. On April 11, 1981, Sue spent the morning driving the kids around. Baseball tryouts for Rick, errands in Quincy. At around 11:30 a.m., she picked up John and his friend Dana Wingate, 17, who were hitchhiking at the mouth of the canyon. She drove them home. By 3:30, the boys had hitchhiked back into Quincy. They were seen downtown that afternoon. That evening, Sheila made plans to sleep over at the Seabolt family's cabin next door, Cabin 27, 15 feet away. She left around 8 p.m. Tina came home from the Seabolts at 9:30 after asking what time it was. The boys, Rick, Greg, and their friend Justin Smart, who lived 2 cabins down, were already in bed in the back bedroom. Sue was alone in the living room. John and Dana got a ride back from Quincy sometime between 10 p.m. and 1 a.m. For years, nobody knew who gave them that ride. The sheriff's investigator on the case now says he has identified that person, interviewed her, and ruled her out. But on that night, the boys walked back through the door of Cabin 28 and into something already in motion, or something that was about to begin. At approximately 1:15 a.m., a couple living in Cabin 16, several hundred feet away, woke up. They'd heard what sounded like muffled screaming. It was coming from the direction of the back of Cabin 28. They did not call the police. They went back to sleep. Here's what we know happened inside Cabin 28 that night. Someone, perhaps multiple people, entered the cabin. They brought at least 1 hammer with them and possibly medical tape. They used additional weapons found inside the home, knives from the kitchen, a second hammer, and a Daisy 880 BB rifle that belonged to the family. They bound the victims. Sue Sharp was gagged with a blue bandana and her own underwear, secured with medical tape. Her hands were tied. John and Dana were bound at the hands with medical tape. Their ankles were tied together with electrical cord, connecting John to Dana, and then the killing began. Sue Sharp was stabbed in the chest. Her throat was cut horizontally. The wound passed through her larynx and nicked her spine. She had an imprint on the side of her head, matching the butt of the BB rifle. She was found nude from the waist down, positioned near the sofa, her body rearranged after death. John Sharp's throat was slashed. He and Dana both suffered massive blunt force trauma to their heads from 1 or more hammers. Dana was manually strangled to death, multiple head injuries, asphyxiation, blood was on the floor, on the ceiling, on the wallpaper, on the furniture, on the bottoms of Sue's bare feet, meaning she was mobile at some point, stepping in blood, on the soles of one of the boys' shoes. The crime scene told investigators something else. The bodies had been moved, staged, Lone pools of blood on the floor and on a sofa pillow indicated the boys had been repositioned after death. Someone had covered Sue with a blanket, placed deliberately. Sheila's flute case was set on top of the knife used in the killings, placed there intentionally, like a signature, like a message, and through all of this, the screaming, the hammers, the struggle, 3 young boys slept in the back bedroom. Rick, age 10, Greg, age 5, and Justin Smart, 12. They were physically unharmed. They said they heard nothing. When Sheila walked through that front door at around 10 a.m. on April 12th, she ran screaming back to the Seabolt's cabin. Jamie Seabolt Jr. came back with her. He went in through the back door briefly to check for survivors, potentially contaminating the scene in the process. He and Sheila then helped extract the 3 boys through the bedroom window. They didn't want them to see what was in the living room. But here's where the case starts to fracture, because what happened next is almost as disturbing as the murders themselves. The Plumas County Sheriff's Office contacted the California Department of Justice. The DOJ sent 2 men to investigate, Special Agents Harry Bradley and P.A. Krim from the Organized Crime Unit, not from homicide, from organized crime, to investigate a quadruple murder in a rural cabin. They didn't secure the crime scene properly. They didn't follow leads. Evidence was ignored. A letter written by the main suspect was quoted as saying, "I've paid the price of your love, and now I've bought it with 4 people's lives." It was overlooked and never admitted as evidence. The composite sketches of the 2 suspects, the ones that would be circulated to the public, were drawn by a local man named Harlan Embry. He had no artistic ability, no training in forensic sketching. The Plumas County Sheriff's Office had access to the FBI's top forensic artists. They chose an amateur volunteer instead. The sketches were useless. Special investigator Mike Gamberg, who took over the case decades later, said it plainly. You could take someone just coming out of the academy, and they'd have done a better job. The initial investigation was so badly mishandled that it may have cost the family any chance at justice. For 3 years, nobody knew where Tina Sharp was. She'd been in the house. She'd come home from the Seabolts at 9:30 p.m. She was not among the bodies in the living room. She was not in the bedroom with the boys. She was just gone. The FBI initially treated it as an abduction case. They eventually backed off. On April 11, 1984, exactly 3 years to the day after the murders, a bottle collector found a human skull and part of a jawbone at Camp 18 near Feather Falls, California, about 62 miles from Keddie. The remains were confirmed to be Tina Sharp. She was 12 years old. She had been taken from the cabin, killed elsewhere, dumped in the woods. The main suspects were Martin Smart and his friend John Bubede. Smart was married to Marilyn Smart, and they lived in cabin 26 2 doors down. Their son Justin was the boy sleeping over at the Sharps that night. Smart told police a claw hammer had gone missing from his home. In 2016, 35 years later, investigator Mike Gamberg found a hammer in a local pond. It matched the description. The sheriff said the location made it clear the hammer had been intentionally placed there. Smart had also told a counselor that he'd killed Sue and Tina. He claimed he didn't have anything to do with the boys. He allegedly said Tina was killed because she witnessed the whole thing. In 2018, DNA evidence recovered from a piece of tape. At the crime scene, the same tape used to bind the victims was matched to a known living suspect. But Martin Smart died in 2000. John Bubede died in 1988. And as of today, no one has ever been charged. The Sharp family children who survived, Sheila, Rick, and Greg, grew up without their mother, their brother, and their sister. Cabin 28 was condemned and torn down in 2004. The site is an empty lot now. Nothing marks what happened there. If you have information about the murders of Sue Sharp, John Sharp, Dana Wingate, and Tina Sharp, you can contact the Plumas County Sheriff's Office. The case is still open. The story of Cabin 28 is horrific to the core and serves as a chilling reminder that you aren't always as safe as you think. If you enjoy stories like this, then please subscribe for more cabins, more nights when nobody heard a thing, and more monsters lurking in the shadows. Don't forget to follow us on social media for the latest updates, images, and sneak peeks.